Hi guys, I welcome you all to this amazing session on Snowflake interview questions. So earlier we had posted one video regarding Salesforce admin interview questions, and we received a very good response from the audience regarding that video. So we decided to come up with another video on Snowflake interview questions. Snowflake is gaining momentum as the best cloud data warehouse solution because of its innovative features like separation of computing and storage, data sharing, and data cleaning. It gives support for popular programming languages like Java, Go, .NET, Python, etc. So tech giants like Adobe Systems, AWS Informatica, Logitech, Looker are using the Snowflake platform to build data-intensive applications. So therefore, there is always a demand for Snowflake professionals. So as per Indeed.com, the average salary for a Snowflake data architect in the US is more than 150,000 US dollars per annum. So if that is the career move that you're planning to make and you're preparing for a Snowflake job interview, then in these questions, we will try to cover the maximum questions that you might face in an actual interview. So without any further delay, let's begin with our questions. So before moving ahead, I want you guys to subscribe to MindMajix YouTube channel and also hit the bell icon so that you never miss an update from us. So let us begin with our first question. So the first and foremost question, and it is pretty obvious, the question is, what is Snowflake? So Snowflake is a cloud-based data warehouse, which is implemented as a software as a service platform. So it is built on a new SQL database engine with unique architecture built for the cloud. So this cloud-based data warehouse solution was first available on AWS as a software to load and analyze massive volumes of data. The most remarkable feature of Snowflake is its ability to spin up any number of virtual warehouses, which means the user can operate on unlimited number of independent workloads against the same data without any risk of contention. So this was the definition of Snowflake. The next question here is Snowflake an ETL tool? So the answer to this question is yes, Snowflake is an ETL tool. So here you might have to explain what is ETL. So ETL is a three-step process. The first step means data extraction. So here you extract the data from the source and create data files. So data files support multiple data formats like JSON, CSV, XML, and so on. The second step is the loading of data. So here you load the data in an internal or an external stage. So data can be staged in an internal Microsoft Azure blob or an Amazon S3 bucket or Snowflake managed location. And the third step in this process is data loading. So here data is copied into a Snowflake database table using copy into command. So this was nothing but an ETL process in Snowflake. So the third question here is explain Snowflake ETL. This question is an extension to the previous question, and here we have to explain in more detail about the Snowflake ETL process. So as discussed earlier, the full form of ETL is extract, transform, and load. So ETL is a process that we use for extracting data from multiple sources and loading it into a particular database or a data warehouse. These sources can be third-party apps, databases, flat files, and so on. So Snowflake ETL is an approach to apply the ETL process for loading the data into the Snowflake data warehouse or a database. Snowflake ETL also includes extracting the data from data sources, doing the necessary transformation, and then loading the data into Snowflake. So this was a rough overview, or you can say a more detailed version of Snowflake ETL. Let's move on to the next question. So the next question here is, how is data stored in Snowflake? So Snowflake stores the data into multiple micro partitions which are intentionally optimized and compressed. The data is stored in a columnar format in the cloud storage of the Snowflake. And the data objects stored by Snowflake cannot be accessed or visible to the users. So by running SQL queries operations on Snowflake, you can access the data. So the next question is, how is Snowflake distinct from AWS? So Snowflake offers storage and computation independently, and the storage cost is similar to the data storage. So AWS handles this aspect by inserting Redshift Spectrum, which enables data querying instantly on Amazon S3, yet not as continuous as Snowflake. So this was a clear distinction between AWS and Snowflake. The next question is, what type of database is Snowflake? So Snowflake is built entirely on SQL database. So what is SQL? SQL is a columnar stored relational database that works very well with Excel, Tableau, and many other tools. Snowflake contains its query tool, supports multiple statement transactions, rule-based security, etc., which are expected in a SQL database. So let's just move on to the next question. So the next question here is, can AWS Glue connect to Snowflake? So the answer to this question is yes. AWS Glue represents a comprehensive managed environment that easily connects with Snowflake as a data warehouse service. These two solutions collectively enable you to handle data ingestion and transformation with much more ease and flexibility. So here the interviewer might ask you some more questions about AWS Glue. So let's say if we ask you, what is AWS Glue? Like, give me the definition of AWS Glue. So the AWS Glue is a serverless data integration service that makes it easy to discover, prepare, and combine data for analytics, machine learning, and application development. So AWS Glue provides all the capabilities needed for data integration so that you can start analyzing your data and putting it to use in minutes instead of months. So this was the definition of AWS Glue. Okay, so now you have both the definitions, AWS Glue as well and the Snowflake as well. Let's just move on to the next question. And the next question here is, explain the different types of Snowflake editions. So as you can see on the screen, these are the various types of editions of Snowflake: standard, enterprise, business critical, and virtual private Snowflake. Okay, so if you talk about the standard edition of Snowflake, so this is the introductory level offering, and this provides unlimited access to Snowflake's standard features. Okay, so if you talk about the features of this edition, you can see here, it provides complete SQL data warehouse. It has secure data sharing across regions or clouds, and you also get business hour support, and you have always on enterprise grade encryption in transit and at rest. Okay, so these are the various features of the standard edition. Now, if you talk about the enterprise edition, this one is the multi-cluster data warehouse, and you have annual rekey of all encrypted data along with this edition. Okay, so this edition provides materialized views of the data, and you also have AWS private link available, and that too at an additional cost. Okay, so this is not included by default. Like, you'll have to get this AWS private link by paying some additional fee. Okay, the third edition is the business critical edition. So here you have HIPAA support and PCI compliance, and data encryption is available everywhere. And you also have AWS private link support, and you have enhanced security policy for this edition. And the fourth edition is the virtual private Snowflake edition. So here customer dedicated virtual servers wherever the encryption key is in memory. Okay, and customers also get the dedicated metadata storage. And you have an additional operational visibility that comes with this VPS edition of Snowflake. Okay, so these are the various editions of Snowflake, and in the interview also you have to name all the 4 editions along with the 3-4 features of these various editions. Okay, so let's just move on to the next question. The next question is, define Snowflake cluster. So in Snowflake, data partitioning is called clustering, and this specifies cluster keys on the table. So there is a process by which you manage the clustered data in a table, and that process is known as reclustering. Okay, for more clarity in the interview as well, you can draw this diagram. Okay, so the advantage of drawing the diagram is that the interview becomes very sure that you have detailed understanding of the Snowflake cluster, or for that matter, any question. Okay, so any question where you think you should draw a diagram, I insist you to draw the diagram. Okay, so half of the question is solved by drawing the diagram, and it creates a good impression of you on the recruiter. Okay, so this was all about the definition of Snowflake cluster. So the next very important question in the interview that you might face is, explain Snowflake architecture. So as you can see here, in this question also you have to draw the diagram, and this is a very simple diagram. There are just 3 layers here. The first one is the cloud services layer, where you have authentication, optimizer, metadata manager, and security. The next layer is the compute layer or the query processing layer, where you have the virtual warehouses. So there can be 1 or more virtual warehouses. And the third layer is the storage layer, where you have the database. So Snowflake is built on top of AWS Cloud Data Warehouse, and it is provided as a software as a service offering. So there is no software and hardware and ongoing maintenance, tuning, etc. needed to work with Snowflake. So there are 3 main layers, as I already told you: the data storage layer, the query processing layer, and the cloud services layer. So if you talk about the cloud services layer, this layer coordinates and handles all the activities across the Snowflake. It provides the best results for authentication, metadata management, infrastructure management, access control, query parsing, and so on. The next layer is the compute layer or the query processing layer. Here, the virtual warehouses process the queries in the Snowflake. And the third layer is the storage layer or the data layer. So this is the layer which is known as the storage layer, and here the data is reorganized as optimized and columnar format. So this was all about the Snowflake architecture. The next question here is, what are the features of Snowflake? So as you can see on the screen, these are some of the features that you mentioned in the interview. So the first feature is the database and object closing. Next, you have the support for XML data as well. And here you have external tables and Hive meta store integration. Snowflake also supports geospatial data, and you also have additional security and data protection. Okay, apart from this, you also get data sharing, search optimization services, table streams on external tables and shared tables, and you also have result caching of your data. Okay, so these are some of the features that you can explain when you are facing such a question about the features of Snowflake. The next question is, why is Snowflake highly successful? So Snowflake is highly successful because of few key reasons. Okay, the first reason is it assists a wide variety of technology areas like data integration, business intelligence, advanced analytics, security, and data governance. It offers cloud infrastructure and supports advanced design architectures ideal for dynamic and quick usage developments. Snowflake supports predetermined features like data cloning, data sharing, division of computing and storage, and directly scalable computing. Apart from this, Snowflake eases the data processing, and Snowflake also provides extendable computing power. So these are some of the reasons behind the popularity, or you can say the success of Snowflake. So the next question is, tell me something about AWS Snowflake. So for managing today's data analytics, companies rely on a data platform that offers rapid deployment, compelling performance, and on-demand scalability. So Snowflake on AWS platform serves as a SQL data warehouse, which makes modern data warehousing effective, manageable, and accessible to all data users. It enables the data-driven enterprise with secure data sharing, elasticity, and per-second pricing. So this was all about Snowflake AWS. So the next question is, describe Snowflake computing. So Snowflake Cloud Data Warehouse Platform provides instant, secure, and governed access to the entire data network and a core architecture to enable various types of data workloads. This includes a single platform for developing modern data applications. Okay, so this was the definition of Snowflake computing. The next question is, what is schema in Snowflake? Okay, so schemas and databases are used for organizing data stored in the Snowflake. A schema is a logical grouping of a database objects such as tables, views, etc. The benefits of using Snowflake schema is that it provides structured data and uses small disk space. So as you can see here, this is one of the schemas that is used in Snowflake. Okay, so there are various types of schemas, such as you have star schema, then you have Snowflake schema, and so on. So the next question is, what are the benefits of Snowflake schema? Okay, so there are basically two critical benefits of Snowflake schema. The first one is that in a denormalized model, it uses less disk space, and the second advantage is that it provides the best data quality. So as you can see here, this is an example of the Snowflake schema. Okay, here you have a fact table, and there are multiple dimension tables associated with a single fact table. Okay, and after this, you might face another important question in the interview, which is our next question. Differentiate between star schema and Snowflake schema. So both Snowflake and star schema are identical, but there are a few differences that exist between them. So in Snowflake, we normalize only a few dimensions, whereas if you talk about the star schema, we denormalize the logical dimensions into the tables. So the interviewer might want to know few more differences between star schema and Snowflake schema. Okay, so you'll have to elaborate, like if he asks you to elaborate this further, so you'll have to state some more points, such as hierarchies for the dimensions are stored in the dimension table for star schema. Okay, and if you talk about Snowflake schema, so here the hierarchies are divided into separate tables. So in star schema, there is a fact table surrounded by dimension tables, as discussed earlier. Okay, and in Snowflake schema, one fact table is surrounded by dimension tables, which are in turn surrounded by other dimension tables. So this was another critical difference between star schema and Snowflake schema. Okay, so if you talk about the database design, so in star schema, it is very simple. The database design is very simple. And in Snowflake schema, it is pretty much complex. And in star schema, you have high level of data redundancy, whereas in Snowflake schema, there is very low level of data redundancy. Okay, so these were few more points that highlight the difference between the star schema and Snowflake schema. So the next question is, what kind of SQL does Snowflake use? Okay, so as you can see on the screen, Snowflake supports the most common and the standardized version of SQL, which is nothing but ANSI SQL. And this SQL is a powerful relational database querying engine. So ANSI stands for American National Standards Institute. This was the answer to this question. I hope you guys are understanding whatever we are discussing here. Okay, so in case you have any doubts related to the questions, you can write your queries in the comments box below, and we will try to address your queries as early as possible. Okay, so let's just move on to the next question. The next question is, what are the cloud platforms that are currently supported by Snowflake? Okay, so as you can see on the screen, Snowflake supports all the major cloud service providers, such as AWS, which is from Amazon. Then you have GCP, which is nothing but Google Cloud Platform. And you also have Microsoft Azure. So this was a very simple question, and you must know this. So the next question is, what ETL tools can you use with Snowflake? So as you can see on the screen, these are the various tools that you can use with Snowflake, such as Matillion, Blendo, Hevodata, StreamSets, ETLib, Apache Airflow, and so on. So the next question is, explain zero copy cloning in Snowflake. Okay, so in Snowflake, zero copy cloning is an implementation that enables us to generate a copy of our tables, databases, schemas without replicating the actual data. To carry out zero copy in Snowflake, we have to use the keyword known as clone. Through this action, we can get the live data from the production and carry out multiple actions on that data. This is the diagram of zero copy cloning that is available in Snowflake. So if you draw this diagram in the interview, like on a sheet of paper, so the interviewer will be very impressed. Okay, so the next question is, explain stage in Snowflake. Okay, so another important question that you might face in the interview, and this is the diagram that you must draw in the interview. So in Snowflake, the stage acts as the middle area that we use for uploading the files, or you can say the data. So Snowpipe detects the files once they arrive at the staging area and systematically loads them into the Snowflake. Now, if you talk about the various stages that are supported by Snowflake for this, so the first stage is the table stage. Next, you have the user stage, and the third stage is the internal named stage. Okay. So the next question here is, explain data compression in Snowflake. So all the data we enter into the Snowflake gets compacted systematically. Snowflake utilizes modern data compression algorithms for compressing and storing the data. Customers have to pay for the packed data and not the exact data. So let's just move on to the next question, which is, how do we secure the data in the Snowflake? So data security plays a crucial role in all of the enterprises. Okay, so Snowflake adopts the best-in-class security standards for encrypting and securing the customer accounts and the data that we store in the Snowflake. Okay, so it provides the industry-leading key management features, and that too at no extra costs. So you can consider Snowflake as highly secure as far as the security of your data is concerned. The next question is, explain Snowflake time travel. Snowflake time travel tool allows us to access the past data at any moment in the specified period. Through this, we can see the data that we can change or delete. Through this tool, we can carry out a few tasks, such as we can restore the data associated objects that may have lost unintentionally. Second, for examining the data utilization and changes done to the data in a specific time period. And third, duplicates and backing up of data from the essential points in history. So these are the three tasks that you can do with Snowflake time travel. The next question is, what is the database storage layer in Snowflake? So whenever we load the data into the Snowflake, it organizes the data into compressed, columnar, and optimized format. Snowflake deals with storing the data that comprises data compression, organization, statistics, file size, and other properties associated with the data storage. See, all the data objects that we store in Snowflake are inaccessible and invisible. So we can access the data objects by executing SQL query operations through Snowflake. Okay, so this was all about the database storage layer. So the next question is, explain failsafe in Snowflake. So failsafe is a modern feature that is available in Snowflake, and this guarantees the data security. So failsafe plays a vital role in the data protection lifecycle of Snowflake. Failsafe provides 7 days of additional storage even after the time travel period is completed. Okay, so the next question is, explain virtual warehouse. So in Snowflake, a virtual warehouse is one or more clusters endorsing users to carry out operations like queries, data loading, and other DML operations. So virtual warehouses approve users with the necessary resources like temporary storage, CPU for performing various Snowflake operations. So the next question here is explain data shares. So Snowflake data sharing allows organization to securely and immediately share their data. Secure data sharing enables sharing of the data between the accounts through Snowflake secure views and database tables. So for this question also, you can draw this diagram as you can see on the screen. Okay, so let's just move on to the next question. How can you access the Snowflake Cloud Data Warehouse? Okay, so there are various ways through which you can access the Snowflake Cloud Data Warehouse. And as you can see on the screen, these are the various ways. The first one is the ODBC driver. Then you also have the JDBC driver. Apart from this, you have web user interface. You have a few Python libraries as well for accessing the Snowflake Cloud Data Warehouse. And last but not the least, you also have SnowSQL command line client. Okay, so these are the various ways through which you can access the cloud data warehouse. So let's just move on to the next question. What are the advantages of Snowflake compression? So basically, there are three important advantages of Snowflake compression. Okay, so storage expenses are pretty much lesser than the original cloud storage because of the compression. The second advantage is that you do not require any storage expenditure for on-disk cache. And the third benefit is that you almost have zero storage expenses for data sharing or data cloning. So these are the very important advantages of Snowflake data compression. Let's just move on to the next question. So guys, this is a very important question. And if you answer this question, you can consider that you have performed very well in the interview. Okay, so the question is differentiate between fail-safe and time travel in Snowflake. So according to Snowflake edition, account or the object particular time travel setup, users can retrieve and set the data reverting to the history. So this is nothing but time travel in Snowflake. Okay, so if you talk about the fail-safe, so in fail-safes, the users do not have control over the recovery of data valuable merely after completing the period. Okay, so in this context, only Snowflake assistance can be held for 7 days. So if you set the time travel as 6 days, then we can retrieve the database objects after executing the transaction plus 6 days of additional duration. Okay, so this was a clear distinction between the fail-safe and time travel. So the next question is explain Snowpipe in Snowflake. Okay, so as you can see on the screen, you have to draw this diagram in the interview as well, which describes the Snowpipe in Snowflake. Okay, so Snowpipe is a cost-efficient and constant service that we use for loading the data into the Snowflake. Snowpipe systematically loads the data from the files as soon as they are attainable on the stage. Snowpipe eases the data loading process by loading the data into micro batches and shapes the data for further analysis. So this was a brief overview of Snowpipe. So the next question is, what are the advantages of Snowpipe? So as you can see on the screen, these are the 4 main benefits of using Snowpipe. So the first benefit is that it gives you live insights of the data. Second, it is user-friendly. Third, it is cost-efficient. And the fourth benefit is that it is quite resilient as far as data properties are concerned. So the next question is explain micro-partitions. Snowflake comes along with a robust and unique kind of data partitioning, which is also known as micro-partitioning. So data that exists in the Snowflake tables are systematically converted into micro-partitions. So generally, we perform micro-partitioning on the Snowflake tables. So the next question here is explain columnar database. So the columnar database is opposite to the conventional database. It saves the data in columns in place of rows, and it eases the method for analytical query processing and offers more incredible performance for the databases. So if you talk about the scope of columnar database, so this is considered as the future of the business intelligence operations. So let's just move on to the next question, which is how to create a Snowflake task. So you can refer to the diagram that is present on your screen. Okay. So to create a Snowflake task, we have to simply use a create task command. And how do you create a task in Snowflake? So you just have to type the command create task in the schema. Like there are 3 steps for this creation. The first step is create task in the schema. The second step is usage in the warehouse on the task definition. And last but not the least, you have to run a SQL statement or a stored procedure in the task definition. Okay, so using these 3 steps, you can easily create a Snowflake task. So the next question is, how do we create temporary tables? Okay, so this is a very simple question. And to create the temporary tables, you just have to execute this query. or you can say you have to execute this command called create temporary table and the name of your table like my table, and then you have to provide the various parameters of the table such as ID, the format, which is a number, and then creation date, which is the date. Okay, so here we have just used the two parameters for this temporary my table. So the next question is, where do we store data in Snowflake? So Snowflake systematically creates metadata for the files in the external or the internal stages. Okay, so metadata is nothing but data about data. Okay, so we store metadata in virtual columns and we can query it through the standard select statement. So let's move on to the next question. And this question is, does Snowflake use indexes? So the answer to this question is no. Snowflake does not use indexes. This is one of the aspects that sets Snowflake scale so good for the queries. So the next question is, how do we execute the Snowflake procedure? Okay, so stored procedure allow us to create the modular code comprising complicated business logic by adding various SQL statements with procedural logic. Okay, so for executing Snowflake procedure, you can carry out three simple steps as you can see on the screen. The first step is you have to run a SQL statement. Okay, and in the next step, you have to extract the results of that query or the first step. Okay, and in the third step, you have to extract the result set metadata. Okay, so using these three simple steps, you can execute a Snowflake procedure. The next question is, does Snowflake maintain stored procedure? Okay, so the answer to this question is yes, Snowflake maintains stored procedures. The stored procedures is the same as function. It is created once and used multiple times. Okay, so through the create procedure command, we can create it, and through the call command, we can execute it. Okay, so in Snowflake, stored procedures are developed in JavaScript API. These APIs enable stored procedures for executing the database operations like select, update, and create. Let's move to the next question, which is another important question. So is Snowflake OLTP or OLAP? So Snowflake is developed for the online analytical processing database system. Subject to the usage, you can utilize it for OLTP as well. So OLTP is nothing but online transaction processing system. So here the interviewer might ask you to differentiate between OLTP and OLAP. Okay, so in that case, you'll also have to mention at least 2-3 points, okay, to answer this question. Okay, so let's discuss a few points regarding the differentiation between OLTP and OLAP. Okay, so OLAP is the category of software tools that analyze the data stored in a database, whereas OLTP supports transaction-oriented applications in a 3-tier architecture. Okay, so OLAP is characterized by large volumes of data, whereas OLTP is characterized by large number of short online transactions. So OLAP creates a single platform for all type of business analysis needs, which includes planning, budgeting, forecasting, and so on. Okay, so if you talk about OLTP, so this is useful to administer day-to-day transaction of an organization. Okay, so these were 3 points that highlight the difference between OLTP and OLAP. Okay, so let's just move on to the next question. How is Snowflake distinct from Redshift? Okay, so both Redshift and Snowflake provide on-demand pricing, but vary in terms of packaging features. Okay, so Snowflake splits compute storage from usage in its pricing pattern, whereas Redshift integrates both of them. Okay, so this was a clear distinction between Snowflake and Redshift. The next question here is, what is the use of cloud services layer in Snowflake? Okay, so as discussed earlier, this question is related to the architecture of Snowflake that we have discussed in the beginning of this session, like the initial part of this session. Okay, so in Snowflake, the services layer authenticates user sessions. Okay, it applies security functions and it offers management, performs optimization, and it organizes all the transactions that are related to the data. So this is basically the function of, or you can say the use of cloud services layer in Snowflake. The last question is, what is the use of compute layer in Snowflake? So this question is also related to the architecture of Snowflake. Okay, so in Snowflake, virtual warehouses perform all the data handling tasks, which are multiple clusters of the compute resources. So with this, we have come to the end of this session on this Snowflake interview questions. Okay, so guys, we have tried to cover maximum questions here. And if you understand all of the questions that we have discussed, there are very high chances that you will successfully clear the interview. Okay, So if you guys have any doubt related to the questions that we have just discussed, so you can write your queries in the comment section and we will resolve your queries as early as possible. Okay, so thank you so much for being with us and I wish you all the best for your upcoming interview. Okay, so the whole idea behind this session was, like if you have an interview in 1 or 2 days, so just by watching this video, you can get a quick recap of all the concepts that are related to Snowflake. So that's all from my side in this session. Thank you so much for being with us.